Now what I want to do is talk a little bit about a unique thing that we're trying to do in our multitasking approach. If you think about the problem of how to enable arbitrary code to run in the background, that gives the most flexibility for user scenarios, but it has a big downside in terms of its unpredictable effect on the battery. The Android platform, for example, has arbitrary third-party code running in the background, and it's quite typical for users to need to do task management on their own or figure out what apps are doing what and affecting the battery. We wanted to enable a lot of the scenarios of background code, but we wanted to do it in a way that could protect the battery. So there were a few things that we thought about in combination. And what we're going to describe today is a new thing that has background agents, which you write as part of your app, a separate part of your app, that we schedule in a battery-friendly way, sometimes periodically, running for a short period of time when the user's on battery, and giving you events like when the user plugs into power and has Wi-Fi, so you can go feast on that data and that power. And we let these things update tiles and do things in the background, and we call these live agents. They are our attempt to balance those two problems of letting you run code in the background, but make sure the user has a highly predictable battery experience where they don't have to actively, personally manage running processes. Later on in the talks today, we're going to describe this in more detail. And in some of the talks later today, we're going to show you the very simple setting UI where a user can go change the policy of whether a particular app's live agent is running in the background or not. So what I want to do is show you one last demo example of an app that actually is bringing together a bunch of these multitasking and platform integration concepts to give sort of a rich notification experience for a common scenario. So I want you to imagine I have some flights. I'm going to go to Australia, so I'm going to be flying Qantas. And down here at the bottom of my start menu, I've already added one tile for my first flight. You can see there the live tiles telling me I'm on Qantas flight 3112, leaving Las Vegas from Terminal 1D. You saw the animation, that's new, at 10:50 a.m., and it's green, it's on time, I'm not late, all is well. But I'm going to scroll up here and actually launch the Qantas app and now show you the app and how we're going to use these live agents and other capabilities to give me a good experience as a user wondering what I need to do for my flights. So here's the Qantas app. You can see there's my frequent flyer info. There's the flight that I have this morning leaving Las Vegas and going to Los Angeles. And here's a flight that I have tomorrow night leaving Los Angeles and going on to Melbourne, Australia. Well, it's almost time for me to go, so I'm going to take this and actually pin it to my start menu as well. So now I have two tiles for the Qantas app, each representing something that I care about, my flight today and my flight tomorrow. And you can see they're giving me different notifications. That tile was telling me check-in is now open for my flight tomorrow. OK, that's useful information. Let's say I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to go through the check-in process so I know I'm checked in. I touch the live tile, and as you saw in other examples earlier today, the live tile links deeply into the app. I could choose check-in now. I won't bother to do that. I could look at my arrival or booking info and so on. Imagine that I checked in. Time has elapsed. It's now important for me to get to the airport. I'm here on stage with you when really I have this 10:30 flight. What am I doing? In a few seconds, the app's going to notify me, hey, here's an alarm, taking advantage of those multitasking capabilities. You got a flight. You should probably be thinking about getting going. You're within this time window. In fact, if I scroll down now and take a look at those live tiles, you see this first flight has turned from green to red because it knows my location. Its background live agent is checking my location, checking the time, saying, OK, where you are, based on the time, you better get going to the airport or you might miss your flight. The red tile is giving me as an end user a cue that I might want to do something about this. So I'll touch it, launch right into the Qantas app, looking at information about that flight. And now the app is handling this case for me. It says, not sure if you'll make it. Alternate flights are available. I can expand that and see what other flights. I could change my flight to one of those. Or I might decide, I'll leave right now, and I probably have a chance to make it. In fact, this app's going to help me out by showing one of our new launchers, which is the ability to jump right into directions. So if I'm going to head to the airport, I can get very clear step-by-step directions to get me there. The app is using all of these capabilities, new live tile features, multiple live tiles, deep linking, live agents, background notifications, to make my experience of figuring out what I need to do to get to the airport a lot better. So, thank you. So I'm going to wrap up my demos and my section of the talk with that, trying to summarize all those benefits. Really what we were trying to do and what I talked about was give you better opportunity to connect with and find users and sell your apps, and give you capability to build richer, better, more compelling apps that integrate in a deep way with the unique phone experience on Windows Phone 7. Thanks a lot for your time. I'm going to introduce Scott, who's going to now talk. Oh, before I do that, I forgot one quick thing. I know on your minds, when will you get the tools? And so I'm going to tell you, we'll have these tools available for you next month. We don't quite have them yet. We have the last bits of polish we're putting on them. As Brandon Watson likes to say, I think you know Brandon Watson, we're waiting on the delivery of unicorn tears to get the tools out to you. But they will be free. They will be online. They will be complete. They'll work well, and we'll let you know as soon as they're available. And with that, I'm excited to introduce Scott to come back out and talk about the developer experience, the tools, and how you go about building all this stuff. Thanks very much for your time. Scott Guthrie.
Well, thank you. It's great to be back here. Joe just finished talking about some of the great user experiences that we're bringing to the next version of Windows Phone. I'm going to spend a little bit of time now talking about how we as developers can build great games and applications for it. The development tools for Windows Phone today are the best on the market. And with this new release, we're going to be making them even better. We're introducing a ton of new capabilities that we're pretty excited about. And what I'd like to do is actually just to start off with is show you a quick demo of some of them. So I'm standing here in front of is a machine that has Visual Studio 2010 Express for Windows Phone on it. This is actually the new version that has the Mango tooling built in. And I got a game here which is called Marble Maze. And I'm going to go ahead and quickly run this application on it. And one of the things that's nice about the Windows Phone tools that we have today is that it has a built-in emulator, so that you don't actually have to have a physical phone in order to do development. And so I launched this game, it loaded up inside the emulator, it does everything that the phone does. We can actually change the orientation a little bit, so it's a little bit easier to see. And what I have here is this Marble Maze game that's in the marketplace today loaded in it. I can hit play, and 3, 2, 1, the game will start playing. Now this is a nice game. You use the accelerometer on your phone, and you kind of try to make sure the marble doesn't fall in a hole. That works great on a physical phone, but one challenge that you have today is that with an emulator, it's pretty hard to actually simulate gameplay as part of that. So one of the nice things that we're adding with the Mango tools is a new additional tools option here that brings with it a couple of additional capabilities to the emulator, one of which is accelerometer support. So what I have here is a 3D version of my phone. You can see here now within the emulator I can actually control. I'll be honest with you, last night I was getting ready for the keynote. This was the hardest part of the keynote I was stressed about, is avoiding the holes. But anyway, you can see here lots of cool things you can do here. You can also play pre-recorded gestures. So for example, this particular game has a shake gesture to reset the game. I can just click shake, hit play, and it can actually simulate that gesture immediately within the tool. So it makes it much easier now for you to go ahead and simulate accelerometer within the emulator. You don't need to have a phone in order to do it. Let's take a look at a couple other benefits that we have here. I'm going to load another application and show off some more emulator features. And I'm going to load a really cool application here called Fourth and Mayor. How many people have tried this game or this app out? Yeah? Jeff Wilcox is here at the event. It's his application. It's a phenomenal Foursquare application. It's location-based, so basically you go to a location, you can check in with Foursquare. Really, really nice application. Now, from an emulation perspective, with the emulator we have today, the downside, of course, is we don't really give you an easy way to simulate a location, because you're always at your PC. And so for an application like this, you end up having to write a little bit of code to do your simulation for GPS. What we've done with the emulator is added support now, so that you can click on a location tab on the additional tools, and you can now pick where you are location-wise. So if I want to pick somewhere in downtown Seattle, I can just click on the emulator. Notice we've just updated the emulator so that it thinks it's now in Seattle. It's actually pretty cool in the sense that we can search as well within this map. So let's search on Mandalay Bay. Let's pick something in the middle of the casino here. And you can see we load up there. I can go up the strip. I can pick the Bellagio, update. It gives me the ability to easily do real-time testing throughout my application. And just like with the accelerometer, I can also load predefined locations from an XML file. So you can see here I've got 6 locations on the map. I'm going to say, hey, let's walk this strip every 2 seconds. Let's change locations. And now I can simulate multiple locations all at once directly within the emulator. So those are a couple of benefits that are coming as part of the emulator. Let's now switch gears and talk about some of the other tooling benefits that we're pretty excited about. One in particular that I'm really excited about is our new profiling support that we're building into the phone tools. This will be part of all the features I'm showing here today are part of the free version of our phone tools. And this profiler stuff that I'm going to show is pretty darn cool. It basically allows you to very easily identify hotspots within your application, pinpoint problems, and it'll actually walk you through the code that you need to fix in order to address them. And so what I'm going to do here is just sort of show things off. Is I got an application here called Home Advisor, and I'm going to run this application. It has some performance problems. And what I can do inside Visual Studio now is just hit Start Windows Phone Performance Analysis. And it'll bring up this little dialog here. And this dialog basically allows me to pick, do I want to measure execution time, in which case I'll measure GPU and all the visuals that are being drawn, as well as my code execution. We're also adding support for memory allocation, so I can track on a per-object basis how many bytes of memory are being generated, who's holding on to what, and optimize my memory as well. For this particular demo, I'm just going to measure execution time. I'm going to launch the application, and assuming my 30-foot USB cable backstage is working. Yep, it is. If we can switch to the camera here, you can see we just deployed this application onto a real phone, and it took a little while to load up. That's one of the performance issues we're going to need to investigate. And it's a simple app, and again, this has performance problems. So if you notice my list scrolling, not as smooth as I'd like it to be, and if you notice when I go ahead and slide, it's really jerky. So we've got some performance problems in this app. We want to go ahead and identify how to fix them. So I'm going to close out of the app. Let's switch back to Visual Studio now. And you'll notice Visual Studio is gathering all the data from that particular phone. It's going to analyze and parse the log files, and then it's going to generate for me a report with a whole bunch of information about what was going on. And you'll notice it captures a ton of data. It's looking at frame rate, and it's telling me frames per second throughout the lifetime of the app how it's doing. 60 frames per second is pretty smooth. You'll notice at the downside here, we dropped to about 15 frames per second. That's really bad. 30 frames per second is kind of on the edge. And you'll notice as we're doing certain things like list scrolling, we're a little jag-toothed there, and so there's some issues we need to fix to make our list scrolling much smoother. We're also capturing CPU utilization. The green indicates the work you're doing on the UI thread. We capture memory usage throughout the application. We can look at animation storyboards, which ones are firing. We can look at whenever you're loading an image from a network. And we can also capture garbage collection events that are happening during the lifetime of the application. So it's a ton of data. What's cool about this data, though, is not only do we just sort of show you the data, but we allow you to easily analyze it. So for example, let's look at that startup time issue that we noticed. I can highlight any of the timeline slices within the tools, and it will go ahead and analyze the data, and it provides kind of some helpful warnings telling me what we think the problems are from a performance analysis perspective for that particular time slice. And so in this particular time, it's saying, hey, you're spending a lot of time on the UI thread doing something, a lot of execution going on. What's nice then is I can drill in to see exactly what we're doing. So now I'm going to go ahead and drill in, and I can see precisely where I'm spending my time, what methods I'm actually calling, and what methods are on the call stack, how often, both inclusive and exclusive, they're actually running. And you'll notice here there's a bunch of system code running, and there's 2 hyperlinks within this list, one for new listings and one for parse JSON. Let's click new listings, and it'll jump directly into my code. So it's saying we're spending a lot of time in this method, this property, and this property is calling the parse JSON method. So let's drill into that. And you can see here, as part of my application startup, one of the issues that's kind of identified is this particular method, we're spending a lot of time parsing a JSON request coming in from the network. This is a good example of where, because we're actually doing it on the UI thread, we're blocking both the UI from rendering and the application from fully starting up. What we probably want to do is put this on a background thread, which would make it a lot more efficient and make my application start up a lot faster. And so very quickly we were able to identify this is kind of a hot spot, and we can go ahead and change our code and actually make it a lot faster. Second issue I want to look at is that list scrolling issue on the houses. And so I'm going to highlight this region right here. Again, you'll notice the bottom here updates based on the data that we analyze.